Hi everyone, today I would like to share how to do the problem formulation. So I will focus on the research hypothesis. So what is a research hypothesis? It is about predicting functional relationship between variables. So what are the variables? We have independent variables. So we need to define how the independent variable relates or influence or change the dependent variable. Later we will see what are these variables. After this, I will share with you the example how to relate the independent variable with dependent variables. Let us see the difference between hypothesis and research question. A hypothesis is a tentative prediction about the nature of the relationship between two or more variables. A hypothesis represents an educated guess about what will happen in the experiment. Hypotheses are always held tentatively. That means it is not compulsory to have hypothesis in your thesis. However, it is very good to make your thesis more clear. So a research question is simply a hypothesis in a question form. So statement of research problem. To state the basic problem that from the research may be written in two forms. The first is in the statement form, which is hypothesis. The second form is a research question form. So when to use hypothesis or research question? First, when to use hypothesis? It is useful if there is an established line of research. Useful if a likely outcome can be anticipated in advance. It's useful to test a specific theory or model. Can inhibit flexibility or blind a researcher to unanticipated results. So now, when to use research question? It's useful if there is little previous research on the topic, allow a researcher to conduct more open-ended inquiries, a wider range of outcomes can be reported. It may encourage excessive manipulation of findings or fishing expedition. So let's proceed with hypothesis. It is an educated and testable guess about the answer to the research question. It's educated guess about the relationship between the independent and dependent variables with a prediction based on data, often implied by a theory. In real experiment, a real hypothesis should be written before the actual experiment. What you think the answer is based on the gathered information. So what are the type of hypothesis? First is a null hypothesis. The symbol is H null. Then we have experimental hypothesis. The symbol is H1 or HA. Experimental hypothesis have two types. One is non-directional. We call it two-way hypothesis, and the other one is directional or one-way hypothesis. So then we have research question. We use the symbol RQ or R. So what is null hypothesis? The null hypothesis is a statistical hypothesis used to determine whether the results of an experiment are statistically significant. It posits there is no relationship between two variables or no difference between two groups. So the null hypothesis is supported if the results are statistically non-significant. So the null hypothesis is never proven. So that means nobody tried to do the experiment to prove that the null hypothesis is supported. Impossibility of proving negative. So the null hypothesis is rejected in the favor of experimental hypothesis. That means if the results are statistically significant. So experimental hypothesis is a prediction that there will be statistically significant finding. Significant difference or correlation between groups or among variables. So non-directional hypothesis. We will see the significant difference in any direction. Directional hypothesis predict that a group or condition will be higher or have more of something, or we predict the specific direction that a correlation will take, whether positive, negative, or covalent. For example, null hypothesis. High exposure to violent video games does not produce more antisocial behavior elementary school children than low exposure. Let us see example on non-directional hypothesis. Japanese and American supervisors will differ significantly in their use of trade as a compliance gaining strategy. For directional hypothesis, deaf children whose parents are deaf will acquire language faster than deaf children whose parents are not deaf. Paraphrasing hypothesis and research question. Avoid vague or nebulous wording. The hypothesis or research question must be clear and concise, testable, possible, that means can be proven false. Wrong example. Do students with high GPAs feel better about themselves than students with low GPAs? So what's the problem with this example? The problem is we do not know how to define high GPA or low GPA. This is very what we call subjective. Different people will use a different scale to level high GPA or low GPA. Let us improve this example. Do undergraduates with GPA greater than 3.0 have higher self-esteem than undergraduates with GPA of lower than 2.0? So how to write a proper hypothesis? Let us use if-then method. So we have independent variables. There is the condition to be studied. It is controlled by the experimenter. For example, a water. Dependent variable. The condition affected by the independent variable. It can't be controlled by the experimenter. The control is the condition that is represented in normal situation. So, step to writing if section of your hypothesis. Start with the word if, write down of one variable, connect statement with one of the following: is related to, is affected to, causes. So write down the other variables. So write down the word if section, make a comment on relationship between two variables. For example, if water related to plant growth, then the more you water plants, the bigger they will grow. This example assumes that all plants have same reflect with the water. So if you want to refine your hypothesis, because we know in our real life, some plants need more water, some plants just need a little bit water. So you have to focus on the species of the plant itself. But this is just an example, simple example for you. So the final statement is, if water is related to plant growth, then the more you water the plant, the bigger it will grow. Another example, if people exercise for 30 minutes per day, at least 3 days per week, then their cholesterol level will be reduced. So these hypotheses make prediction about the effect of exercising on level of cholesterol, and the prediction can be tested by gathering and analyzing data. Salt in soil may affect plant growth. Ultraviolet light may cause skin cancer. Temperature may cause leaf to change color. So what's the problem with this? This looks like a hypothesis, but it do not suggest how you will go about proving it. Another example, tree will change color when it gets cold. This is not a hypothesis, this is a prediction. Ultraviolet light cause skin cancer. This is not a hypothesis too. This is the conclusion. This is the conclusion. You should make this statement after you complete your experiment. You make a conclusion, but this is always a mistake by many researchers. So you write your conclusion in the hypothesis, or you write a prediction in your hypothesis. This is not what we call advice. The way to prevent making such easy mistake is to formalize the form of the hypothesis. Let's see the example of ultraviolet light. So by using if then, we can formalize this hypothesis. So if skin cancer is related to ultraviolet light, then people with high exposure to ultraviolet light will have a higher frequency of skin cancer. So what is independent variable? What is dependent variable? So the skin cancer, can we control the skin cancer? We cannot control the skin cancer. So the skin cancer is a dependent variable. But we can control the ultraviolet light, the amount of ultraviolet light. So we can say ultraviolet light is the independent variable. So we relate ultraviolet light with skin cancer. Null hypothesis would predict that the exercise group and the no-exercise group will not differ significantly on the level of cholesterol. But the alternate hypothesis would predict that the two groups will differ significantly on the cholesterol level. Which hypothesis that you should choose? So when you do the statistical analysis, you will use the null hypothesis, but you test the null hypothesis to reject it. Actually, your experiment is focusing on the alternative hypothesis. If you know the direction, then you use directional hypothesis. That means you know which one should be better than which one that you expect to be better than the other one or the other population. So you use directional. If you are not sure, no idea how they differ, you just assume that they will differ, but you are not sure which one is better, then you use non-directional hypothesis. So what is the function of hypothesis? It provides study with focus. What specific aspect of research problem to investigate? Tell you what data to collect and what not to collect. Enhance objectivity in a study. Enable us to add to the formulation of theory. It enables us to specifically conclude what is true and what is false. So the characteristic of hypothesis: simple, specific, conceptually clear. It should test only one relationship or assumption at a time. Capable of verification, must be available for data collection and analysis, related to the existing body of knowledge, emerge from the existing body of knowledge, and that it add to it. Operationally stable, can be expressed in terms that can be measured. Let's see example hypothesis in computer science. Many work address the non-differentiability issue by reformulating the absolute value equation system through a parameterized smooth equation. So you got the reference. Among the existing smoothing functions, the aggregation, that is AGG, and Fisher-Burmeister, we use short form FB, are considered as the most popular smoothing function. These functions have been capable of estimating the minimum function from both sides to retain the original form of the piecewise objective function. As the AGG and FB functions are utilizing logarithm and square root functions respectively, they are being able to smooth any corner or breaking point by producing curve. However, smoothing with a single square root and a single log function is less effective due to producing slighter curve. So this also have reference. So this is the issue. How to write the hypothesis. If a combination of smoothing function can affect the differentiability of the piecewise objective function, then combining the AGG and FB smoothing function will produce a smooth circle line slope on both sides with less computational time. Okay, what is the independent variable? What you cannot control is differentiability. Let's review this hypothesis. So what is the dependent variable? So remember, dependent variable is the variable that we cannot control. So what we cannot control is differentiability of piecewise objective function. So you can see the word effect. So the term before that is the independent variable. That is the combination of smoothing functions. That means we can have many combinations of smoothing. After we write the hypothesis, we can write aim or objective based on our hypothesis. So therefore, in this study, we aim to propose a new smoothing technique to improve the non-differentiability issues of the canonical piecewise objective function by combining AGG and FP. You can see the word combining AGG and FP, and this also the issue that you try to tackle. So this is how to relate your hypothesis with your research aim. Error in testing a hypothesis. It is possible to arrive at the incorrect or misleading conclusion about a hypothesis due to the sampling design is faulty, the sampling procedure adopted is faulty, the method of data collection is inaccurate, the analysis is wrong, the statistical procedure applied are inappropriate. That means you choose wrong statistical analysis. So before you do the statistical analysis, you must know about the data or the result. You need to do the normality test. You need to identify, is this normal or non-normal? If normal, then what statistical analysis is appropriate. So you have to choose between parametric and non-parametric tests. So you have to make a correct decision on which statistical analysis is correct based on your data or your result. So the conclusion drawn are incorrect. So the process of testing a hypothesis: first, formulate your assumption, collect the required data, do the experiment, and then lastly is analyze the data drawn to draw the conclusion about the assumption, whether is it true or false, or is it supported or not supported. So hypothesis, is it essential? Hypothesis, though important, it is not essential for a study. A perfectly valid study can be conducted without constructing a single hypothesis. Hypotheses are important for bringing clarity, specificity. Hypotheses are important for bringing clarity, specificity, and focus to research problem. What did you find? Answer to the question was a conclusion. It is okay to turn out that your hypothesis was not correct. You learn. Maybe you need to revise your hypothesis if your hypothesis is not supported. So don't cry. Report your finding, report your thesis. So one of the most important part of the scientific method is to report the others about your finding. Either your hypothesis is supported or not supported, you should report in your thesis. So you will help others to learn. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for listening. Please contact me if you have any inquiries about how to write the research hypothesis. Thank you. Bye.